Brian, thank you so much for chatting with me. I cannot believe it, are finishing 20 weeks this week of your training program.
That's right. Feels like it's been 2 months.
I know, and I've made some really good gains on it. I've been really still just as motivated, very excited, and I'm also now approaching the end of 24 weeks post-season, so we're like legitimately getting deepish into the off-season. I think the main things I wanted your feedback on were, one, timeline. We totally blew the kind of weight gain goals out of the water. Right now, my average weight for this week, with I think 3 weigh-ins so far, and it's Thursday here, is 89, looking at the 2-week average. Originally, we were projecting for me to get, I think in December, noting it's May 1st in the States, to 88. So talk about overachieving. I'm 7 months early and 1 kilo past where you wanted me. But as we've discussed multiple times and satisfied my neuroticism and subclinical body dysmorphia, we think that I'm as lean as could have been hoped to be at that point, earlier and heavier. So what do we think my target body weight should be?
So I think, I agree. I'd be comfortable starting prep from here if we had to. And so I genuinely think, just looking at photos, that your stage weight will come up some, which isn't, I hesitate to even say, because that's not the norm, but I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that this is like a fully dedicated bodybuilding off season. There's not, concurrent training going on, and you're pushing a lot of volume, and you're responding very favorably. So I think if we budget for, 1.5 kilos heavier, I think is a good kind of approach. I think originally we estimated maybe like 78, whatever your stage weight was last time. Was it 78.5?
Yeah, we were basically targeting my old stage weight, which is a really good idea generally.
Yeah. And I think, your conditioning was great, and we may end up similar to that with more muscle and even leaner. But I definitely feel comfortable pushing up the top end of the off season a little bit more, especially given the timeline we have. There's no sense in mini cutting from here. We still have runway to gain where it's, quote unquote, like an acceptable body comp, where we're not creating more work for ourselves by continuing to go up. So I think going up to 91.5, 92-ish, I think is very reasonable for this, for between now and, close to the end of the year somewhere, maybe, like end of November-ish, I think is what we kind of figured out. And then from there, you could run a mini cut, and then we could actually leverage a bit of a surplus up to kind of the weight you're at now, and then we could start the prep at that point.
Okay. So pretty similar timeline to what we originally planned, just extending it up from 88 to 92-ish, and then still doing a mini cut, but getting basically back to where I am now versus as low as I think we were planning 86-ish previously, because I've just put on a fair amount of lean mass. And then a similar prep time frame after another surplus to get up another 2 kilos. So kind of basically trying to start prep at a similar body comp to where I am now, or maybe slightly leaner if I can put on more muscle. Fingers crossed. And then having a target stage weight of like 80 if we're being conservative,
I think that's a good approach, and things are going to change as we have found out, with the original timeline we laid out. And I think we talked about this in one of the other updates, is when we're using kind of these evidence-based guidelines to structure timelines, it's easy to, if things are going really well, it's almost easy to get in your own head, because I think you experience that a little bit, like feeling like you're gaining too quickly when our bottom line is better than we expected, and so it's you got to look at the outcome and then adjust around that. So that's exceeded our expectations by a long shot, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, and the good news is the schedule has been favorable from what I've heard. There's probably going to be pro shows that I could use to qualify for Worlds as late as early November. So, if it ends up that I am fatter than we thought, or we want to extend the off season because things are going so well, either way, we have runway.
Yeah. In worst case, I mean, right now, with a lot of prep athletes, I'd say 90% of them have that pre-prep fat loss that's required. And usually it's like, okay, let's lose, then let's maintain. In us, we are kind of budgeting for a surplus. So if we are at a body comp that's less favorable than we thought, then we could always just maintain and not gain up to 88.
For sure.
And we're also spending 11 weeks in that range, which is more than enough time. So we have some insurance built into that.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think that's great. And the only other thing I wanted to talk about, Brian, to kind of was the program and where we could make adjustments. And there's some really minor ones, pun intended. One is that my ankle flexibility from all the calf stretching that I did previously and the like deep bottom range stuff makes it so that there's very few calf exercises I can do at full range where my foot doesn't slip off of the traction area. So I'm planning on just doing only dumbbell single leg calf raises, as boring as that is, but it's the only one where I can do a lot of reps close to failure without slipping and constantly adjusting.
Yeah, I think that's any leg extended calf raise is going to be fine there. And really, I do a lot of calves just on the stairs with body weight. If you really get like a good pause at the bottom, I think we were talking about this like last one of the shows we were at, how like we were both saying how challenging those are if you actually add in a pause. Like I don't know if I can get more than 20 reps with body weight if I'm doing like a true like deep pause with each rep. So it's a nice load limiting option. So there's no excuse for anybody's calves to be small.
Never.
If they have stairs in their home.
Exactly.
And if not, go somewhere where there are.
Yeah, exactly. Go outside or just buy a 2-story home. And
that would be the most economical option for sure.
Obviously.
And you get a new house.
Yeah, so win-win really. Calves plus a new house, winning. Other changes, there's only one day that has become pretty challenging, and that's day 2, the legs and arms. And that's because the Bulgarian split squats I've gotten pretty strong on. I recently did all my sets at 8 with 40-kilo dumbbells. And the stabilization required and just the mental fatigue from that, it's pretty high, as well as the cardiorespiratory demand. So what I was thinking is that we could swap out the Bulgarian split squats for a hip extended variation of leg extensions, which I've kind of jury-rigged. I figured out how to use pads and a wedge to keep a pretty high range of motion around the knee by padding my shin so I can get more range, and then also getting more stretch on the rec fem. So I'd like to do that there, and then to get the glute work that we're kind of missing, and to get in a little more than just hip extension, I was thinking I could use the multi-hip machine, which is quite good, and do hip abduction, but shift that to day 5, the second leg day that I do. So I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think that's great. That second leg day is, I mean, it's still, for most people, a lot of volume, but it's definitely, allocating some of that glute volume over, it would be totally fine there. I think that's very reasonable. And then we could add that maybe after sissy squats or leg extensions on that day.
Perfect.
So we're kind of piecing together a split squat. Well, it's a different glute movement, but it's something we don't have in the program, so I think it'll only help.
And I'm not, and also because I think I can handle it with the reduction of the Bulgarian split squat on that day, and B, I think they may not be as effective exercises on their own. So I was thinking we could do 4 sets of leg extensions and 4 sets of back extensions, which were I think we were previously 3 on day 2.
Yeah, just kind of beef those up. But yeah, leg extensions.
Yeah.
There's not any mental cost to doing those.
No, and I don't know if you ever tried these, but when you do standing leg extensions or basically any leg extension and hip extension, I don't get nearly as much like burn, even at high reps on the leg extension, because when you're seated, I think there's actually some like occlusion that goes on just because your hip is flexed.
Yeah, I have noticed that now that you mention it. Anytime if I do sissy squats or something, I feel a deep stretch, but it's not that
burning,
that acidic feeling. in
I feel I'm better able to push to true quadricep failure when I'm in hip extension. So I think we could do 4 sets there, add a set to the back extension on that day, and then throw in the 4 sets of abduction on the second leg day. And honestly, I think out of all my lower body musculature, what needs to come up the most is my glutes, and they haven't been getting super sore or beat up.
Yeah.
So I think it seems like a good move, and I can handle it. Like the 2 days that are not challenging in terms of the overall amount that I'm doing. I mean, they are challenging, but they're not like, geez, like I don't know if I can handle all this.
Yeah.
Is day 5 and 6.
Right. I think the only thing, and we can revisit this next check-in. If we feel like it'd be beneficial to hit glutes a little bit more directly on that second day, because right now, I mean, we don't really have a glute biased movement in day 2, but do we? No, we have hacks, leg curls, leg extension, back extension, and then calves.
Yeah, we got the back extension, and then it says hack squat, but I'm actually doing that squat machine that does.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah. So that is a little bit more of a hybrid kind of. Like and you have ridiculous ankle mobility, but you're also getting a good bit of hip flexion there. So
yeah, exactly. And at the bottom, if you watch my squat pattern on the it's not a V squat. I think it's closest to a V squat. You can see that my knees actually track back a little bit at the bottom. So there's definitely some glutes getting involved there. So I think it's a pretty good balance.
I think so too.
Okay. And then the only other change that I think we could do is just to beef up the final day 6, shoulders and arms. I'm fully recovered going into it. It is a shoulders and arms biased upper body day, and I've noticed that my shoulders and arms have come up the most. So I was thinking we could even increase the rear delt row 1 set there to get a little additional back work, and then to get a little additional like lat and chest work and make that day more of just a upper body day versus shoulders and arms exclusively. Maybe throw in like a full range of motion pullover to pair with the lateral raises.
Yeah, I think that would work. I think placing that, I don't think we should place it after the rear delt and dips, just because there's going to be some fatigue, from those carrying over. But then if we have that break where we're doing preacher curls, incline French press, concentration curls, then that's kind of like a finisher for lats and even long head. So I think that's a good approach. And if long head feels like it's getting demolished from it, then we can always switch to a different option rather than incline French press potentially.
Well, I think this would only take my sets on triceps up to like 45, so it's really not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, the editors of Flex Magazine are knocking at the door. They want us to write programs for them here. I said, it's just Eric Helms.
Yeah,
it's built different.
And honestly, my arms are responding really favorably to this. So
it's hard. So when we first laid this out, I thought this is, and you're used to a lot of volume, and this is definitely the most volume I've ever programmed for somebody. But it's if you give it time, like it's obviously working, and you're staying healthy for the most part. A couple things here and there that you've worked around intelligently, but it's I mean it's on paper. If I saw this for 99% of people, I would probably say you're probably operating on the right side of that bell curve a little bit. But I think for you, it's working really well.
I would love to be Jeff Alberts and be able to do less to get more. And for my lower body, to some degree, I am. But I feel like my lower body is more like the normal volume range, and my upper body is like just do more.
Well, where you screwed up is experimenting with high volumes to begin with. If you would have just been blissfully ignorant and just said I'm a low volume guy, you wouldn't have ever had this option. So it's your fault.
I also wouldn't have a bigger upper body, but it is what it is.
True. And I do think another thing worth mentioning to people is like you keep a pretty brisk pace with antagonistic paired sets and everything. So, with slightly shorter rest intervals, you're getting the additional volume is probably more beneficial there. Like if you were resting 3 minutes between every set of every exercise, this might be an excessive amount of volume potentially. But
to be honest, I think for me, it would just feel easier. I'm in pretty decent shape, and I am not cardiorespiratory limited by things. So when I do an antagonist paired set, most of my the muscle that's being trained actually does get 3 minutes rest.
True. That's true.
I am just comfortable not necessarily representing the bell curve, and
that's fine.
I trained for years thinking I would, and just not making great upper body gains until I did more.
Just dedicated your life to science just to spit in its face by doing 45 sets of triceps.
That's right. Yeah. Well, hey, most of it's indirect. And I actually am glad we're doing the pullover on that day, because I think any more pulling than a little bit more, and I would have to be really wary of the elbow tendonitis. But the straight arm, I think, will be good for me. Yeah.
No, I like those. I think they're an underrated movement, and especially even the full range. Like if you're training lats with a pullover, we have that 90-degree option. That's you're gonna push lats a little bit harder with that, since you're not bringing triceps and pec as much into it. But this is like the perfect, like a full range cable pullover is a good it's a good way to kind of round out and build off the dips and the rear delt rows. So I think I like it.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you for your time. That's all I've got. Is there anything else that you wanted to go over as a coach, or you think we got a good plan going forward?
I think we've got a good plan. I think we'll just have to be pretty reactionary with the timeline. I know we've talked about this before, but on paper, which nothing has gone according to paper so far, but on paper, it would make sense. It's encouraging that you made the progress that you did in the window relative to your prep that you did, because I would have expected like now is when you're really like, now we're back to building muscle like predictably, and hitting new levels. But it wouldn't surprise me if the best is yet to come, I guess, and that would be amazing.
Let's go.
So we may just end up competing at 89 kilos.
Marcus Rule, watch out! I'm coming.
They'll take anybody's money. So no one says you can't.
I'm down.